30 years after its premiere, Forrest Gump remains a beloved film, making it one of the few that does hold up its time. The film introduced us to distinctive and likable characters, from Tom Hanks' classic depiction of the affable Forrest to the unforgettable supporting ensemble. Have you ever wondered what became of the actors that brought such brilliance to this film? Discover what the cast of Forrest Gump is up to these days as we take you on a nostalgic trip through time. Michael T. Williamson, who played Bubba Blue. Who could overlook Bubba Blue, the best buddy of Forrest Gump? After traveling to Vietnam together, both quickly became great friends. After the two's battalion was attacked in the jungle, Bubba's death struck deeply since he was one of the only individuals Forrest could connect to throughout the war. Though strange, Dave Chappelle nearly played Bubba, portrayed by Michael T. Williamson. Though it might sometimes be difficult to recall every detail of the film, Michael T.'s portrayal of Bubba and his connection with Forrest is difficult to forget. Michael T. Williamson today. Michael T. is still performing today. In addition, he plays parts that are similar to Bubba's. He often portrays a member of the armed forces. His most recent roles are those in The Purge, Election Year, and Lethal Weapon. Since he starred in Forrest Gump, which came out almost 30 years ago, he has been in an unexpectedly large number of films. However, Bubba may be his most famous character. Few people are aware, but Michael T. spends some of his leisure time restoring old automobiles and competing in rodeos, which Bubba would have liked. Jeffrey Blake, who played Wesley. There aren't many characters in Forrest Gump that you might classify as villains, but Jeffrey Blake's character, Wesley, is most likely at the top of the list. Until Forrest beat the stuffing out of him at a Black Panther meeting, Wesley, Jenny's lover at one time in the film, was physically violent. We don't see him much after that. But Wesley's being so unlikable is a testament to Jeffrey's acting abilities, as he did a fantastic job in the role. Jeffrey is a somewhat likable guy in real life. Jeffrey Blake today. Jeffrey was accruing credits even before Forrest Gump. Since then, he has starred in an equal number of films, many of which you have undoubtedly already seen. He acted in Frost Nixon, Apollo 13, and Midway, before reuniting with Tom Hanks for Castaway. He has had an excellent acting career and will likely continue for some time. Wesley remains his most recognizable character, despite his roles in successful films, which speaks something about the success of the movie Forrest Gump. The Principal of Sam Anderson. One of those people we only saw briefly but left a lasting impression was the principal who appeared at the start of Forrest Gump. Sam Anderson, the actor who portrayed him, did a fantastic job portraying him. Because he first refused to allow Forrest into the school, this character is among the most hated in the film. He also demonstrated to the audience that, although the first part of the movie was set in a tiny village, there were many characters that many would have thought were cunning or just evil. Sam Anderson today. Sam has starred in several films since Forrest Gump's debut in the 1990s. However, you may not be familiar with all of them, and based on his film credentials, he has even starred in a few Bollywood productions. Where the Crawdads Sing, which was set in similar location as Forrest Gump, was the largest film in which he had starred since Forrest Gump. Even though he has starred in many less well-known films, many are still worth seeing since they have received great reviews. Sonny Shroyer as Bear Bryant. If you have any college football knowledge, you know how important Bear Bryant was. Along with Nick Saban, he was one of the most successful coaches in the sport's history and is still revered in Alabama. In the film, he also portrays a significant part in building Forrest's future and is provided with a football scholarship. The bear, portrayed by Sonny Shroyer, was one of the few historical figures in the movie that the actual actor didn't portray since the Honorable Bear Bryant died in 1983. Sonny Shroyer now. In the film, Sonny played Bear Bryant with tremendous grit and his trademark houndstooth cap. He has continued performing since his role in Forrest Gump, although he is now around 88. He has acted in films such as Ray and The Rainmaker. He starred in several movies that were either set in the South or dealt with the history of slavery and liberation. His acting choices make a lot of sense, given that he's from Georgia and will probably do much more before deciding to retire. Richard D'Alessandro, who played Abby Hoffman. Richard D'Alessandro portrays Abby Hoffman, an activist, in the film. You may not be aware that Abby was a natural person if you're not well knowledgeable about the history of that period. He participated in anti-Vietnam War protests and was one of the Chicago Seven. It's interesting to research him because of his bizarre life, complete with events that appear more like fiction than reality. Additionally, Richard did a fantastic job portraying him and laying the groundwork for the whole anti-war movement, which Forrest briefly spoke when standing at the Capitol's podium. Richard D'Alessandro today. Richard has played several essential parts in Hollywood since his performance in Forrest Gump, and you've likely seen him at least once in a film or television program. He has appeared in several films, including Law and Order's Special Victims Unit, Godfather of Harlem, and The Sopranos. But despite all of those well-known roles, his performance in Forrest Gump remains one of his most recognizable. In contrast to his role in the film, he has subsequently played several roles that either combat crime or are associated with it. Since then, he hasn't played many activists. Dick Cavett as himself. Today, Forrest Gump is known chiefly for its narrative. When it initially came out, it did have some technological advancements, such as superimposing Forrest in many historical videos to make it seem like he was there. Dick Cavett, who had a program decades ago and even interviewed John Lennon, was one example of this. Dick was a little older than when the interview began, but he portrayed himself in the moment. They even incorporated some of John's most well-known lyrics to imply that he wrote the song after speaking with Forrest, giving the impression that he was responding to him directly in the scenario. Dick Cavett today. When the Dick Cavett Show aired on television, it was a significant event. He did, after all, interview John Lennon. However, we can also provide more evidence of its popularity if you need it. Sports Illustrated claims that instead of having artist Joni Mitchell perform at Woodstock, her management decided to have her appear on the broadcast. You were on the program if you were a star at the time. Dick and his new wife live a reasonably tranquil life in Connecticut these days, and Dick tends to keep to himself. He retired and relished some calm after all those years of stardom. Marla Sucharetza, who played Lenore. Another character in the film who has little screen time is Lenore. She shows up when Forrest discovers Lieutenant Dan, who is not doing well, in New York City. After seeing the New York's ball drop, the four of them return to the apartment, and she is with another lady. But when she calls Forrest slow and makes fun of him, she is evicted from the flat. Given the number of unexpectedly gloomy situations on and off camera, it's likely one of the film's darkest moments. Marla Sucharetza now. Marla Sucharetza has appeared in several well-known television programs since her role in Forrest Gump, such as Damages, The Good Wife, and Law and Order Special Victims Unit. She hasn't, however, been in many films recently. She has acted in most movies that came out in the 2000s. However, she hasn't declared her retirement, and because she's a fantastic performer, she will likely be in many more films soon. However, given how well-liked the film was and remains, it will be difficult for her to equal her legendary portrayal in Forrest Gump like many others on this list. Robin Wright, who played Jenny. One of the most contentious characters in the whole film may be Jenny. She was Forrest's childhood sweetheart, but they spent most of the film apart until getting back together at the very end when Forrest found out they had a kid together. Jenny participates in many of the demonstrations and activities shown in the film during the period in which it is set, and the two briefly cross paths in the Capitol. Nevertheless, along with Forrest and Lieutenant Dan, Jenny is unquestionably one of the most memorable characters in the whole movie. Regardless of your opinion of her personal qualities, her conclusion is tragic. Robin Wright now. When she landed the character of Jenny in the film, Robin Wright was already relatively well known. She has starred in other high-profile films since her role in Forrest Gump, such as Blade Runner 2049, Wonder Woman, Moneyball, House of Cards, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and many more. Since starring in the movie in the 1990s, she has also won several acting accolades. It's reasonable to assume that, like before her role in Forrest Gump, she will remain a significant force in Hollywood and star in many more films. Michael Connor Humphreys as young Forrest. The viewer spends much time with the younger Forrest at the start of Forrest Gump. It effectively introduces the film and depicts all of the hardships he had as a child. Michael Connor Humphreys portrayed that younger Forrest. Given how young the actor was when he portrayed the part, it is not unexpected that it was his first role. Nevertheless, he performed a fantastic job, making him one of the movie's most memorable elements. Seeing a young Forrest handle every visitor who entered the house was amusing. Michael Connor Humphreys now. After his first part, Michael Connor Humphreys decided not to pursue a career in Hollywood, unlike many others on this list. Instead, he has had a relatively typical existence. Similar to an older Forrest in the film, Michael was born in Mississippi, joined the Army when he was old enough, and served in Iraq. He now resides in Oregon and teaches pupils virtually while mostly keeping to himself. He has, nonetheless, shown some interest in performing once again in the future. The 2011 film Pathfinders, In the Company of Strangers, is his sole other film credit. Haley Joel Osment as Forrest Gump Jr. Forrest Gump Jr. isn't introduced to us until almost the movie's conclusion, yet everything that occurs about him makes him unforgettable. Forrest is the only one left to nurture and look after him after he lost his mother. Before being chosen for the role, the young actor who portrayed Forrest Jr. had some prior acting experience. His statement, "I see dead people" from The Sixth Sense, is well known. Despite his well-known look and line, he was only chosen for the part because one of the show's writers spotted him in a Pizza Hut ad. Haley Joel Osment now. Haley's face undoubtedly seems recognizable, even if you may not have seen much of his work. This is because the actor has starred in several television series and motion pictures since his childhood role in Forrest Gump, albeit none have nearly attained the same level of recognition as his early work. He has starred in Spielberg, Sex Ed, and Entourage. He has had a lot of voice acting experience as well. Given his extensive resume, Haley will probably be an actor for many more years to come. He has voiced roles in both video games and children's films. Gary Sinise, who played Lieutenant Dan Taylor. One of the most enduring characters in the film is Lieutenant Dan. He changes from a tough lieutenant committed to serving his nation in Vietnam to a struggling veteran and, ultimately, one of Forrest's closest friends and business associates. After the movie, he even gets a happy ending. Without a doubt, the character would have been almost as memorable if Gary Sinise hadn't performed the part. Sinise appeared to be a natural fit for the part. One of the most comprehensive character arcs in the movie is that of Lieutenant Dan, who, by the conclusion of the film, has entirely changed. Gary Sinise today. Gary mainly was a theatrical actor before his role in Forrest Gump, and he has recently reverted mainly to that. He has, however, also fully embraced his most famous persona, forming an organization to assist wounded soldiers and forming a band called the Lieutenant Dan Band that performs for veterans. He loves helping others, and since Forrest Gump, he has made excellent use of his notoriety. He did not, however, leave Hollywood. He restarred with Tom Hanks in The Green Mile and Apollo 13. He starred in several other movies, including Bruno, The Quick and the Dead, and Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Tom Hanks as Forrest Gump. There's no need to introduce this one. The fact that Tom Hanks portrayed Forrest Gump in the movie is well known. It's still one of his most enduring personalities, even though his lengthy career flourished before his part in Forrest Gump. His performance as Forrest even earned him an Oscar. Many people are unaware that the initial plan was for the part to be played by someone else. In the film, John Travolta was meant to portray Forrest, but we can't imagine that. Fortunately, Tom ended up portraying Forrest. Tom Hanks now. Since playing Forrest Gump, Tom's career has taken a turn for the worse. We're kidding. He's still one of the most well-liked performers in the world and still appears in many big-budget movies. He wasn't always an actor, however. He sold peanuts at baseball events before entering the entertainment industry. He recently returned to his previous position during the outbreak to voice a snack salesperson for MLB coverage. Naturally, no one was at any stadiums during the epidemic, since social distance regulations and attempts to stop the virus from spreading prohibited anybody from attending sports. Afemo Omilami, who played the drill sergeant. Forrest's arrival in boot camp was somewhat unexpected, but he was a great recruit who even caught the attention of Afemo Omilami's character, the drill sergeant. Afemo was successful in capturing the ideal image of a drill sergeant. In addition to being threatening and shouting all the time, he was supportive when he saw someone acting correctly. This character also made an impression despite briefly appearing in the film. Afemo's persona comes to mind whenever we think of a drill sergeant. Afemo Omilami today. Afemo has acted in many different films since Forrest Gump, but he has never portrayed a role precisely like the one he did in the movie. He has starred in several films, including Drumline, Glory, Remember the Titans, and Sweet Home Alabama. Most of his parts are uplifting and feature individuals who don't shout as much. Thus, he is most likely not like Forrest Gump's drill sergeant. Since he co-starred with other actors from Forrest Gump, he has starred in other films. Many of the people on this list appear in many movies together. Hannah R. Hall as young Jenny. Despite having little on-screen time, Hannah R. Hall's character, young Jenny, like young Forrest, was very memorable in the film. Because she was raised in extreme poverty and with an abusive father, her character was sad. However, it did provide the viewer a lot of insight into her early years and the reasons for her actions as she grew older and progressed through life. The first time Hannah appeared in a movie, she did a fantastic job. We still feel sorry for young Jenny, even though she is a fictitious character. Hannah R. Hall today. Hannah played several other parts after her performance in Forrest Gump, but she never had a role as significant as her first film. However, she has never been retired, so it's not completely impossible that she may play essential parts in the future. Halloween, a well-liked horror movie from 2007, may have been her most excellent movie after Forrest Gump, but that's about it. We know she also serves as an intimacy consultant, assisting performers in getting ready for private sequences in forthcoming films and television programs. Siobhan Fallon Hogan as Dorothy Harris. Many individuals have strong memories of their childhood bus driver. After all, they were in charge of getting you to and from school, watching you on the bus, and communicating with your parents when you misbehaved. You would see them almost daily. Siobhan Fallon Hogan's portrayal of Dorothy Harris, the bus driver from Forrest Gump, was as memorable and even returned at the film's conclusion. Just like she did when she first picked up Forrest decades earlier, we see her pick up Forrest Jr. for his first day of school. Furthermore, it's likely something that many people can identify with. Siobhan Fallon Hogan now. Since her role in Forrest Gump all those years ago, Siobhan, another performer on our list, has had a very successful career. She has been in several TV shows and movies, shows that you've most likely seen, but because of the roles she plays, she often has a very distinct appearance. Her well-known films include Daddy Daycare, Charlotte's Web, Holes, The Bounty Hunter, and Men in Black. Her many recent film credits also indicate that she will likely continue to perform and be a fixture in Hollywood for some time. Peter Dobson as Elvis Presley. When Forrest meets a young Elvis Presley staying at the family home, the viewer knows what the film will be about. He even assists Presley in creating his trademark dancing step. The voice you hear in the movie is that of Kurt Russell, who we suppose might have had a more substantial effect than Peter Dobson, who portrayed Elvis. Nevertheless, Peter's resemblance to Elvis and his ability to emulate his movements make him completely convincing as a young Elvis. Peter Dobson now. Even though Peter hasn't acted in many films since playing Elvis in Forrest Gump, he still manages to look the part and capitalize on it. Since his 1994 debut, he has portrayed an Elvis impersonator in several other roles. He has also said that he would attempt directing in the future. However, as far as we know, that hasn't happened yet. If that doesn't work out, he has a bright future as a real-life Elvis impersonator, but it seems that he will continue to work on films in one way or another. Sally Field as Mrs. Gump. As predicted, given her lengthy and prestigious acting career, Sally Field, who portrayed Forrest's mother in the film, performed a fantastic job. By the time she accepted the part, She had already won 2 Oscars. Nevertheless, Mrs. Gump is a noteworthy figure who does her hardest to care for her kid by herself. She appeared in several films you've undoubtedly heard of before landing the part. She appeared in several films including Steel Magnolias, Smokey and the Bandit. And she is well known for saying, "I can't deny the fact that you like me," during her Oscar speech. "You're fond of me now." Sally Field today. Since playing the part in Forrest Gump, she has been a regular fixture in Hollywood, making appearances in several high-profile films. She has acted in dramas and superhero films alike. She also devotes a lot of her time to promoting Wrights. We're happy that she won't leave anytime soon, regardless of her future choices. She is still appearing in movies and several high-profile television series at the age of 77. She is most likely one of the only performers on this list who isn't just recognized for her role in Forrest Gump.
If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon